I'm staying at the Newcastle Tropical Resort. I'm living in the concrete parking garage in the northeast corner. Yeah, I sleep at the hotel. I haven't slept in 48 hours. I've been here for 2 days. I've been here for 2 months, I guess.
In days ahead came the contradictions.
Stand by. Welcome back to Life's Learning Curve. Storytelling. Our own life stories, full of humor, some cringeworthy moments, and at times, a grander purpose. Did you ever wonder just how you became the person you are today? That's us. Storytelling. And now we head back to Key West. Paul and Charlie have a one-of-a-kind adventure from just days ago. Here's our host, former education tech guy, Paul Hart. Life's Learning Curve, Episode 84, Life's Navigational Beacons. Stand by.
Thanks, Sebastian. Welcome back, everybody, to Life's Learning Curve. It's true, yes. Just a couple of days ago, we came home from Key West, Florida. Vacation. Sunny, tropical, beautiful Key West, Florida. One of my favorite places to go. Now, our story begins just last Monday, less than a week ago, on a Monday afternoon. And let me tell you, it's a time of day in Key West where the sun beats down on the streets and it beats down on the people on the streets as well. The people in our episode, well, my better half and I, we are Paul and Charlie. We found ourselves out walking and kind of people watching, looking around. After all, we were there for the swaying palm trees, yes, and we were there for the salty sea air. And that day, we were on the lookout for relaxation, yeah, a delicious beverage or two, and maybe even an adventure along the way. But little did we know that our journey would lead us to a meeting with a middle-aged man named Brandon, whose story would alter the course of our holiday in Key West. Seems like I took a wrong turn somewhere, Charlie. I'm not sure where we're at. I was squinting against the glare of the sun as we navigated the maze of side streets and businesses and narrow passages of Key West.
Where are we? Are we lost?
Yeah. Well...
We can just turn around, right? And find a way back to Main Street.
Well...
Duval Street, right?
Yeah. I can do that.
We emerged at a beautiful local Episcopalian church, and we sat on a long wooden bench high in front of the courtyard to cool off a little bit and just, people watch. Now, from our perch in that churchyard facing the main street, we laid eyes on, lots of things, but we saw trending tropical-looking attire. People buy clothes sometimes to go on vacation, and in Key West, you're going to see some real unusual things. We heard thumping techno tunes vibrating from maxed-out woofers on passing cars.
Oh my God.
And we also saw a few particularly unusual, colorful hairstyles on people.
Is that even a shirt?
It seems that right before our eyes, culture was shifting, and that set the stage for what was about to happen. Our attention swerved as an iguana leisurely climbed a neighboring banyan tree, and we gazed upward as we witnessed the vibrant reptile's gradual journey skyward.
That's so cool.
As we looked back down to the people, to people watch, once again, it happened. I'll tell you, it was like magic. It was a God stroke that had happened. Perhaps a placement on purpose. Because seemingly from out of nowhere, our eyes fell upon a sight that stopped us dead in our tracks. Because there, directly in front of us, struggling to maneuver on the flat sidewalk, in an ill-equipped wheelchair, was a man. He seemed to only have body function on his right side, making it nearly impossible to use a manual wheelchair, because his left side hung limp and useless. It was the result of a stroke, we found out later, that had struck him down many months before.
What in the world?
Our eyes became wide as saucers, watching the spectacle unfold before us.
How on earth did that man manage to get this far?
I'll tell you what, he's barely budging that chair, Charlie. Look at, he's moving like an inch at a time. Our attention was glued to the absurdity of the whole situation. He was barely moving. It was one of those times in life you just can't look away.
Hey there, my friend. Happy Monday to you.
Bellowed Charlie, her voice echoing through the air like a cruise ship about to leave port.
Is there anything I can do for you? You need any help at all? I'm Charlie, and this is Paul.
Hi.
The destitute gentleman cast his gaze skyward, looking up at us. A glint of rebellion was shining bright in his eyes, notwithstanding his evident struggles.
Morted. Fine weather we're having.
Ain't it? He remarked.
They called me Brandon.
If you laid eyes on Brandon, you might assume he'd seen sunnier days. He sat permanently perched in his wheelchair, his posture slouched over, like a tired willow drooping with the weight of the world in a summer storm. Brandon's head seemed determined to follow the same path as his body, just hanging low. But what caught my eye the most was his left foot, or rather what little it seemed to do besides just trailing along, dragging, useless. Oh, it would drag beneath his chair like a weary traveler on a dusty road, while its counterpart, his right foot, soldiered on with a valor that would make even Teddy Roosevelt tip his hat with respect. Forward, Brandon pressed inch by painstaking inch. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit that stirred within this guy. Oh yeah, just by looking at Brandon, he looked a bit like he'd been acquainted with some hard times.
Where are we?
Though not perhaps entirely destitute, his clothes, well, from what I remember, were they were kind of a sorry sight, reeking of an unmentionable odor, let's say that, and strapped to the rear of his wheelchair contraption were a lot of plastic bags, bulging with sundries like over-the-counter remedies, aspirin, some spare attire, not much, and even an odd shoe or two. Money? Well, it seemed to be half in his pocket and half out of his pocket, dangling precariously from this pocket as if it had half a mind to bid farewell to its owner, right there on the sidewalk. And his hair, Brandon's hair, resembled more of a tangled mess of weeds than anything that was groomed. He looked unkempt, and his fingernails could give a cat's claw a run for its money. He had a hat perched atop of his head, and it rested there. It was kind of a feeble attempt to tame the unruliness of his hair beneath. As I said already, his clothing was kind of a sorry excuse for a shirt and some denim that seemed very reluctant to make the acquaintance of his waist. Think about that.
Thank you.
Yet, to us, Brandon's words were kind, and they were always thoughtful.
Kind.
He wanted no special attention or money
Kind.
or help, and he said so frequently from the start.
I only arrived in town a few days ago, fresh off a flight from Indiana. I'm staying, out at the Newcastle Tropical Resort out on the highway in the northeast corner of the Key West Island.
So why did you come here to Key West, Brandon? But he had no answer. Now, Charlie being Charlie, she couldn't help but inquire.
So how did you get downtown in that wheelchair?
I just called me an Uber, ma'am, and he came and got me.
He replied as casual as possible.
See, the buses here won't pick up wheelchair people. Since my stroke, I've been in the chair. I can't use any of my left side from my upper arm all the way on down to the bottom of my foot.
To the naked eye, it seemed as if we were dealing with a vagabond. Yet, maybe, just maybe, he actually was really a wanderer, a vacationer, or something in need of a helping hand to navigate this world, his world. For lo and behold, he did possess coinage and a lot of rumpled up dollar bills and a plastic debit card. However,
I got money, but just as smarted My debit card got stolen this morning, and
no.
my cell phone battery's dead. I can't call anybody about it.
There was a flicker of urgency in his eye, and then Brandon added,
I reckon I need to reach out to my bank back in Indiana right away and let them know that debit card of mine's gone wandering.
Charlie and I looked at each other, and soon she Googled the name of his bank, and I used my cell phone to call Richmond, Indiana.
Here it is. Call this number.
Hey, as it turns out, Brandon had been telling the truth. He did have a debit card. He did have money in that account, and the gentleman from the bank immediately put a stop on the card.
We'll stop that card, but unfortunately, sir, the card already has 2 unapproved charges on it. Here's what we'll do. We'll stop that card immediately right now so nobody can use it again. And we'll send a replacement card to you, Brandon, in Key West. It'll be there within the week.
Thank you so much, sir.
With that good news, the news that his new card was being sent to him, Brandon wore a huge grin. It's as wide as the Mississippi River at flood stage. I offered Brandon some money for food because his card had been stolen, right? But he shook his head like a man swatting away mosquitoes.
I have all the money I need. Why would I take your money? Thanks, though. Weird. People have been trying to give me money all day today.
I'm gonna go in.
Following that, Shirley made her way into that Episcopal church, mustering up the courage to inquire about charging up Brandon's cell phone on maybe one of their plugs. Lo and behold, out popped the choir master, a man named Tim, grinning from ear to ear, eager to help.
Hi, my friend, Brandon, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm glad to tend to your cell phone inside the church and fetch you some H2O, and let's go inside and sit and talk a bit, too.
But here's the twist in this tale. Tim laid down just one condition.
Brandon, before we proceed with our aid, do kindly hoist up those trousers of yours high enough to spare the congregation from the sight of your, unmentionables.
Well, you wouldn't have known it, but Brandon seemed as if he had just been struck by lightning, for he hadn't the foggiest notion that his torn blue jeans were halfway to the devil's domain. Yet,
So sorry.
there he sat, redder than a sun-soaked tourist at Smathers Beach.
I'm so sorry.
So, into the hallowed halls of the church we ventured.
There we go.
I pushed Brandon. His wheelchair was creaking along as I nudged him forward.
Bet it's nice to be pushed for a change, huh?
With a bit of teamwork, we settled Brandon in, ensuring his cell phone found its way into an outlet, eager to replenish its energy.
All right.
As the phone recharged, a conversation began. From that conversation, I began to better understand Brandon's world, a world fraught with trials and tribulations. His mother stricken with the relentless grip of cancer back in Indiana, and it weighed heavily on Brandon's mind.
So she's pretty sick.
Their relationship, strained and fractured, had led Brandon to depart Indiana. And his departure from the Midwest was a gesture to shield his family from the burden of his own infirmities. That stroke he had. But Brandon's woes did not end there. His stroke, a harrowing event in its own right, had led him grappling with the frailty of his own mortality.
Oh, Brandon, I'm so sorry.
Yet, rather than burdening his loved ones further, Brandon sought solace in the distant shores of Key West. It had been his ticket purchased with dreams of escape and respite.
I came here.
However, fate had fulfilled its goals, leaving Brandon stranded with nothing but a manual wheelchair to navigate his world. And with a halting effort and strained exertion, Brandon persevered, inching along as best he could.
Brandon, you have to call home and let your family know that you're here in Key West.
I agree.
But amidst that saga
Yes, ma'am.
of struggle, yes, there was a beacon of hope. His phone was now fully charged, and with trembling fingers, we watched as Brandon called home, back to Indiana. His voice was a mixture of longing and love as he spoke to his stepfather, imparting his situation, that
Papa.
where he was and how he was doing,
Yeah.
and his heartfelt affection for the family.
I'm in Key
The
West.
family that he just couldn't exist in anymore.
Yeah, I'm okay.
In that church vestibule that day,
Yeah.
amid whispered confessions, I knew that I was witnessing a whole lot of character and even more human resilience.
How's Mama doing? I love you too, Papa.
Our apprehensions regarding Brandon were genuine, yet we couldn't help but wonder, was Brandon a sly deceiver, a vagrant of the streets, a spinner of tall tales maybe? Or maybe, just maybe, he was telling us the honest truth. Be that as it may, we both decided,
Hey, Paul, let's see if we can check in with him every day just to see how he's doing.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Let's do it.
exiting the solace of the church, the three of us continued up the main drag, Duval Street. Now, throughout the span of that day, in the company of Brandon, he let it slip about the weight he felt, a tremendous, overwhelming anxiety that burdened his soul, like a millstone dragging a riverboat to the murky depths. It seemed that his anxiety affliction was the very thing that was barricading him from a warm embrace of society, the people that were trying to help him constantly. It was a societal fear. It was then that Brandon confided in me that he relied on a steady stream of prescribed pills to tame the beast of anxiety that gnawed at his insides.
Most people wouldn't know it, but the very idea of interacting with everyday people makes me nervous.
But lo and behold, in the midst of the tremendous anxiety, there stood Charlie and me, and we were trying to offer some relief amidst the storm he was having. It was a storm of anxiety.
You know, you guys are all right. Strange. I just don't get them jitters when I'm with you guys.
Thanks.
It just goes to show, even in an anxiety storm, there's always friendship waiting to be discovered. As the sun reached that golden hour marking the end of our maiden voyage with Brandon, that first day, a sense of ease settled upon us like a blanket over a weary traveler. In the cozy circle of our quartet? Who? Well, Brandon, Charlie, myself, and yes, the Almighty himself. We had found a kinship that transcended the mere mortal realm. So, with clasped hands and hearts united, we bowed our heads and we prayed. It was a sacred moment amidst that hush of that Key West twilight.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, you guys.
It had been a day like no other for Brandon. Independent as ever, he wanted to be left alone. People watching, yeah. He said just leave him there off Duval Street, and later he would return to a hotel by Uber. With each passing day, we found ourselves drawn back to those same alleyways. Our encounters with Brandon were becoming a regular occurrence.
There he is.
There he was. Every single day, we ran into this guy.
Brandon.
There he was, perched in his wheelchair. His posture was slouched.
Brandon.
His head hung over like a tired willow tree in a summer storm. And despite our best efforts to provide him with clothes, time, support, his pride remained unyielding. And it wasn't an uncommon sight to see Brandon rummaging through his pockets in search of money. His money. Money seemed to have a knack of slipping away from him. And as for his phone, well, that small contraption had a knack for playing hide and seek nestled in some cranny of that wheelchair. where his worn-out limbs they couldn't wriggle to.
My fold.
Life's a peculiar thing. It'll toss you around like a leaf in the wind, whether you're ready or whether you're not ready. And Brandon, well, he was learning that lesson the hard way, because each day was bringing him closer to some crossroads where his pride was intersecting with his necessities. So the next day we did find Brandon, and he was outside. He was looking even more unkempt. This time Brandon, well, his hat was missing.
The breeze seemed to blow it away, and a big gust came yesterday. Here's a hat to keep the sun off your head, Brandon.
I had an extra hat with me.
Here, Brandon, we've got you a new shirt, too.
She held it out in her outstretched arms. Brandon hesitated. His gaze flickered between the clothes and the ground beneath his feet.
Much obliged, but I reckon I can manage on my own.
But as each day passed, we managed to run into Brandon. Each day, everywhere, as if he were being placed at our feet on purpose.
There's Brandon.
Day by day, Brandon's situation only seemed to worsen. The stench of urine and despair hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the depths to which he had fallen. It was on day 3 that he took a deep breath and he explained,
Hey, Paul, I guess I got some truth-telling for you. I've not been here for 2 days, but more like it's been 2 months, and I never stayed at that hotel.
Well, where have you been staying, Brandon?
Where do you spend your nights?
After a long pause, the wheelchair-bound middle-aged man softly said,
Well, there's a place at the corner of that cement parking structure that I sleep in my chair at night.
You can't keep living like this.
Her voice was tinged with concern.
I appreciate your concern, ma'am, but I ain't one to be beholden to nobody.
Brandon's jaw was set in a stubborn line, and so, despite our best efforts, and as it turns out, other tourists' efforts, other community members' involvement, as well as many of the local churches who were trying to help him, Brandon's pride became his undoing. Each day that passed found him sinking further and further into the depths of homelessness, his spirit dimmed by the weight of his circumstances. Yet, in days ahead, came the contradictions.
I'm staying at the Newcastle Tropical Resort. I'm living in the concrete parking garage in the northeast corner. It's dark there. I sleep in my room in the Newcastle Tropical Resort every night. The police make me move every 15 minutes all night, or they'll arrest me for vagrancy. I sleep at the hotel. I haven't slept in 48 hours. I've been here for 2 days. I've been here for 2 months, I guess. I took an Uber to get into town. I've never took an Uber before in my life.
On that last day, the last day we ever spoke with Brandon, there he was with his familiar slouched posture, and first we stopped and prayed to God for good health, for peace, for love and direction. Next, we talked. I couldn't help but feel a curious itch of... I was curious. The curiosity was creeping up my spine. Brandon and I had a one-to-one conversation. And I said,
Brandon, why, of all the corners of God's green earth, did you come to Key West? It's hot here.
With a patience born of resignation, Brandon finally cast an honest light on the shadow of my question. In a voice as soft as a whispering breeze, he unfolded the tale of his dreams and his ambitions, each one a star in the night sky of his aspirations. Yet reality and that stroke could be stubborn. It had played a cruel hand, leaving Brandon's dreams stranded on the shores of impossibility. And so, here he sat in Key West, a haven where the sun dances on the waves and time moves to the rhythm of the tides. In this humble, tropical reality, devoid of fancy stuff but rich with simplicity, Brandon had found a sanctuary where he could navigate, a safe harbor where the anxiety-rich storms of his life, they might rage but never breach his sturdy walls. As his words settled on me, things began to make a lot more sense to me. See, Brandon's purpose, what he wanted to do was to take life's disappointment, that stroke, losing his family, and take life and make what he had shine with a quiet brilliance, one he could live in. And I have to say that in that moment, I saw what he was saying. There was beauty finding peace amidst life's anxiety and storms. Brandon was securely anchored in the calm, resilient harbor of his own state of mind. As Shirley and I watched him struggle to navigate the unforgiving terrain of Key West, I couldn't help but wonder, what might have been for Brandon if he had only been willing to accept the kindness of strangers, everyone's help or everyone's friendship that had been extended to him. But I guess some souls are destined to wander alone. I know a few of those. Their pride is a barrier to the kindness of others.
How many roads you were told to go on forever, and how many times you must lie to keep it together. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on.
And so we left Brandon to his own fate, hoping and praying that one day he would find the strength to overcome the obstacles that lay in his path. How's your food?
This tastes so good.
Mine's good too. Now, later that day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting this golden glow upon the tranquil waters of Key West, Charlie and I found ourselves sitting at a rustic seaside bar and grill, enjoying a leisurely, fresh catch meal. The salty breeze danced through the air, carrying with it what I love about Key West, the sounds of laughter and distant strains of music. And there, about a half a block away, in the distance, in the bustle of tropical streets of Key West, far away for us, I guess, I saw Brandon again.
Is that him?
Well, yeah, it is. It's Brandon. I thought I saw a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes as he dined on a simple meal given to him by a stranger. And although Brandon's journey had been fraught with hardship and despair, that particular day he had found solace in the warmth of another human connection. Big step for him. So Charlie and I looked at each other and we raised our glasses in a silent tribute to the resilience of the human spirit, knowing that Brandon's story was far from over, but filled, just maybe, it was filled with the promise of a brighter tomorrow.
How many years roll on by, we learn from each other. How many chances do you get to fade or recover? It goes on, it goes on, it goes on.
So what did we learn from this story? What did Brandon learn? What did Charlie learn? What did I learn in this? Well, Brandon had set his course in Key West and was busy trying to keep his life between the navigational beacons when we found him. For sure, We thought we needed to help him, and for sure we thought he needed our help. But actually, that might not have been the case, because what I haven't told you was the end of our one-to-one conversation we'd had the day before, Brandon and me. When I asked Brandon why he came to Key West, of all places, he was very quiet in his explanation. He told me,
Well, sir, the doctors told me my time's up in a month or two. I came to Key West to finish out my days.
Blue skies, Brandon. God bless you. The Life's Learning Curve. I'm Paul Hart.
It goes on. It goes on.
Subscribe to Life's Learning Curve at lifeslearningcurve.org and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Podchaser.
Episode 84. Season 6 of our podcast, Life's Learning Curve. Life's Navigational Beacons was put together by Sebastian T. Dog and Paul Hart. Find us just about everywhere podcasts are heard. Our website, lifeslearningcurve.org. While you're there, please subscribe. We'd love to have you aboard. This episode has imaginative voice recreations. To protect the privacy of others, some names have been changed and characters conflated. Episode 84. Season 6 of our podcast, Life's Learning Curve. Life's Navigational Beacons. For more lifelong stories and realer-than-real experiences, catch us next time, right here on Life's Learning Curve.